You're about to say something real. You feel it rising in your chest, the words forming, honest, unfiltered. And then you stop. You soften it. You change the tone. You turn it into something easier for them to hear. And just like that, it's gone again. It doesn't feel like a big moment. It never does. It's small, quiet, almost invisible. The way you laugh when something didn't feel funny. The way you say, "it's fine," when it wasn't. The way you pause, just for a second, before answering honestly, and then choose not to. No one points it out. No one stops you, because from the outside you look normal, easygoing, calm, low maintenance. But inside, something keeps getting interrupted, over and over again. It starts early in the day. You wake up already carrying a version of yourself that feels edited, not fake, just adjusted. You check your phone, messages, notifications, conversations waiting for you. You read something that bothers you slightly, not enough to react, just enough to feel. And even in that small moment, you do it again. You downplay it. You move on. You tell yourself it's not worth the energy. And maybe it isn't, but it keeps happening. At work or around people, you become even more precise. You measure your tone. You filter your reactions. You think 2 steps ahead of what you're about to say, not because you're unsure, but because you already know how it might land. So you choose the safer version, the version that doesn't create tension, the version that doesn't need explaining, the version that keeps things smooth. And it works. You avoid awkwardness. You avoid conflict. You stay comfortable. But something in you starts to feel distant, like you're watching yourself participate instead of actually being there. It follows you into conversations. Someone asks how you've been, and for a split second, there's a real answer, a heavy one, a complicated one. But you don't say it. You smile slightly. You give them something simple, something clean. "I'm good." And the conversation moves on, and so do you, but not completely, because later, it comes back. At night, when everything slows down, when there's nothing left to distract you, that's when you remember what you didn't say, what you didn't show, what you quietly held in again. And it's not dramatic, it's not overwhelming, it's just there. A quiet weight, a subtle kind of regret. You start replaying moments, small ones, things that didn't seem important at the time. A joke that went a little too far, a comment that stayed with you longer than it should have. A moment where you felt something real and immediately covered it, not because you had to, but because you've learned to. And that's the part that's hard to notice. No one sat you down and told you to hide your feelings. It didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly, in small adjustments, in quiet corrections, in moments where being honest felt slightly inconvenient, or slightly misunderstood, or slightly too much. So you adapted. You learned what to show and what to keep. What gets accepted and what gets ignored, what makes things easier and what complicates them. And over time, it stopped feeling like a choice. It just became normal. You don't even question it anymore. You just do it, automatically, like muscle memory, like breathing. But there's a cost to that, and it doesn't show up immediately. It builds quietly, in the background of your life. It shows up as confusion, not about the world, but about yourself. You start to wonder why you feel disconnected in moments that should feel real, why conversations feel slightly off even when everything seems fine, why there's a gap between what you feel and what you express. Then it shifts into frustration, because part of you knows you're holding back, knows you're not fully there, knows you're capable of being more honest, more present, more real, but you don't, not consistently, not completely. And then comes something quieter, regret, not the loud kind, the subtle kind, the kind that shows up when a moment has already passed, when the conversation is over, when the opportunity is gone, and all that's left is the version of you that stayed quiet. Again, you tell yourself it didn't matter, that it wasn't important, that it wouldn't have changed anything, and maybe that's true, but it still lingers. Over time, it starts to feel heavier, not because of one moment, but because of all of them, stacked, repeated, accumulated, and then something else begins to happen. You stop expecting yourself to be honest. You stop even considering it. You default to the easier version without thinking. And that's when it shifts into something deeper. Numbness, not the absence of feeling, but the absence of expression. You still feel everything, you just don't show it. Not fully, not clearly, not in a way that feels complete. And eventually, without realizing it, you start turning it inward. You question yourself, why didn't I say something? Why do I keep doing this? Why can't I just be direct? And slowly it becomes self-blame. Quiet, unspoken, but persistent. You start to think it's something about you, that maybe you're just not the kind of person who speaks up, who expresses things clearly, who shows what they feel without hesitation. So you accept it, you settle into it, you build a life around it. A life that works, a life that functions, a life that looks fine from the outside, but feels slightly distant from the inside. And the strange part is, nothing feels obviously wrong. There's no clear problem, no dramatic issue, just a quiet sense that something is missing, something you can't quite name. It's like watching your life happen without fully stepping into it, like being present in every moment, but not completely there. You see time moving, days passing, conversations happening, opportunities appearing and disappearing, and you're there for all of it, but not fully engaged, not fully expressed, not fully seen. And somewhere in the background, there's a quiet question you avoid asking. What would it feel like to just say it, to not adjust it, to not soften it, to not filter it through what feels acceptable or easy? But you don't go there because it feels unnecessary or uncomfortable or too late. And this is where it gets difficult. Because nothing forces you to change. There's no urgent consequence, no immediate loss, just a slow, quiet distance between you and the version of you that feels real. And this is where everything starts to become clear, not all at once, not dramatically, but gradually, like something you've always known, finally coming into focus. Because the problem was never that you didn't feel enough, and it was never that you didn't care, it was never a lack of awareness. If anything, you feel too much, you notice too much, you understand too much, and that's exactly why you learn to hide it. But here's the truth. You didn't lose your ability to express yourself. You just stopped trusting it. You started choosing comfort over honesty, ease over tension, silence over clarity. Not because you're weak, but because it felt safer, more controlled, more predictable. And in doing that, you didn't just avoid discomfort. You slowly disconnected from yourself. Because every time you hold something back, you're not just managing a moment. You're teaching yourself something. You're reinforcing a pattern, a quiet belief that what you feel is better left unspoken. And over time, that belief becomes identity. Not something you think about, something you become. But that's also where the shift begins. Not in action, not in forcing yourself to suddenly say everything, but in how you see it. Because discipline, in this context, isn't about speaking more. It's not about being louder. It's not about pushing yourself into uncomfortable situations just to prove something. It's about something quieter, more precise, more internal. It's about deciding that what you feel matters enough to not always be edited. It's about noticing the moment right before you filter yourself and staying there for just a second longer. It's about choosing not to immediately replace your real response with a safer one. Not every time, not perfectly, but intentionally. Because every time you don't do that, you reinforce distance. And every time you do, even slightly, you rebuild connection. Not with other people first, but with yourself. And nothing about that is loud. Nothing about it looks impressive from the outside. It's quiet, almost invisible, but it changes the way your life feels. The same conversations, the same days, the same environment, but a different presence inside them. Because you're no longer just participating, you're actually there. And that doesn't mean everything becomes easy. It doesn't mean every moment feels perfect or complete. It just means something stops being suppressed and something else starts to return. So the next time you feel it, that small pause before you speak, that moment where you're about to adjust what's real, you'll notice it. And in that moment, you'll have a choice. Not a big one, not a dramatic one, just a quiet decision. Do you say what feels true, or do you let it disappear again?